What if we could detect Alzheimer's before memory disappears? Alzheimer's detection is moving toward biomarkers, brain imaging, spinal fluid testing, and blood-based tests, but blood tests are not a simple crystal ball for everyone yet. The FDA cleared a blood test in 2025 to help diagnose Alzheimer's pathology in symptomatic adults 55 and older, and Alzheimer's Association guidance focuses on using blood biomarkers mainly in specialty care for people with cognitive impairment. For most of human history, Alzheimer's has been understood through what it takes away: a forgotten name, a misplaced key, a familiar road that suddenly feels unfamiliar, a sentence that begins clearly and then disappears before it reaches the end. Families often notice it first in small moments. A mother asks the same question twice. A father forgets an appointment he was excited about. A grandmother pauses in the kitchen, staring at a cabinet she has opened 10,000 times, suddenly unsure why she opened it. And at first, everyone explains it away. Maybe she is tired. Maybe he is stressed. Maybe it is just age. Maybe everybody forgets things. But beneath those small moments, something deeper may already be happening. Long before memory seems to disappear, Alzheimer's may be changing the brain in silence. Proteins begin to gather. Networks begin to weaken. Communication between brain cells starts to fail, and the person still looks normal, still laughs, still tells stories, still goes shopping, still answers the phone, still says, "I'm fine." That may be one of the cruelest parts of Alzheimer's disease. By the time the outside world can clearly see the problem, the inside world may have been changing for years. So the question is not only, can we treat Alzheimer's? The deeper question may be, what if we could detect it before memory disappears? Not after the family's frightened, not after the person gets lost, not after daily life begins to shrink, not after independence is already slipping away, but earlier, in the quiet phase, in the hidden chemistry, in the first biological warning signs, in the moment when the brain may still have more to save. That is where one of the most important medical ideas of our time is beginning to take shape. Because Alzheimer's may not begin with forgetting. It may begin with signals, tiny biological clues, proteins in the brain, changes in spinal fluid, patterns seen on advanced scans, and now, increasingly, traces that may be measured in blood. For years, detecting Alzheimer's biology often required expensive brain scans or spinal fluid testing. These tools can be powerful, but they are not simple for every patient, every clinic, or every country. A brain scan can be costly. A spinal tap can feel intimidating. Specialist appointments can take months, and many people never reach that level of testing until the disease has already become obvious. But blood is different. A blood test is familiar, simple, fast, scalable. One tube of blood cannot yet tell the whole story of a human brain, but it may help reveal whether Alzheimer's-related changes are present. And that changes the imagination of medicine. Imagine a future where a person does not wait until memory fails before getting answers. Imagine a future where a doctor sees the first signs of risk and says, "Something may be changing. We need to look closer." Not to terrify the patient, not to label them as doomed, not to steal their future before it arrives, but to give them time to confirm what is happening, time to plan, time to protect the brain, time to enter clinical trials, time to consider treatments earlier, time to change the conditions around the disease before the disease changes everything. Because time may be the most valuable thing Alzheimer's steals. It steals time from families, time from conversations, time from independence, time from recognition, time from the person someone used to be. So if detection can move earlier, the entire story may begin to change. Right now, Alzheimer's is often treated like a fire discovered after smoke is already filling the house. But what if we could detect the heat inside the walls? What if the future of brain medicine is not waiting for memory to burn, but sensing the danger while there is still time to act? This is not science fiction in the way people usually imagine it. It may not begin with a glowing machine reading thoughts. It may not begin with a dramatic cure. It may not begin with a single miracle test. It may begin with layers of information. A blood marker, a memory assessment, a brain scan, a family history, a genetic risk profile, a pattern of sleep, a change in walking, a change in speech, a change in the way the brain uses energy. One signal alone may not be enough, but together they could form something medicine has never had before, an early warning system for the brain. And that idea matters because the brain is not just another organ. The brain holds the map of a life. It holds the smell of a childhood home, the sound of a daughter's laugh, the face of a husband across a dinner table, the way to make a favorite recipe, the words to an old song, the private memories no one else can fully carry. When Alzheimer's attacks memory, it does not only attack information, it attacks connection. It changes relationships. It changes identity. It changes the way families say goodbye, slowly, over years. That is why earlier detection feels so powerful, because it suggests a future where Alzheimer's is not discovered only after the person begins to vanish. A future where the brain's quiet distress signals are heard sooner. But there is a hard truth here too. Detecting risk is not the same as preventing disease. A test can answer one question and create 10 more. What does it mean to know you may be at higher risk years before symptoms? Who should be tested? Who explains the result? What happens emotionally when a person learns their brain may be changing? What happens if the test is wrong? What happens if the test is right, but medicine still cannot stop the disease? These are not small questions. Because information can be a gift, but it can also be a burden. A warning without a plan can become fear. That is why the future of Alzheimer's detection cannot be only about technology. It must also be about wisdom. Doctors will need clear guidelines. Patients will need counseling. Families will need support. Health systems will need access. And society will need to decide how to use early knowledge without turning every older person into a frightened patient. Because the goal is not to make people afraid of their own minds. The goal is to give people a chance to act earlier, a chance to join research sooner, a chance to protect sleep, blood pressure, hearing, movement, social connection, and heart health, a chance to prepare legally, emotionally, and financially while the person can still speak for themselves, a chance to fight the disease before it has taken the strongest ground. And maybe, as treatments improve, early detection becomes even more important. Because many brain diseases may be easier to slow before they are advanced. Once millions of neurons are gone, medicine faces a much harder battle. But if the warning comes earlier, the target changes. The mission is no longer only rescue. The mission becomes preservation, preserve memory, preserve function, preserve independence, preserve the person's place inside their own life. That is the dream hidden inside this breakthrough. Not just a test, a different timeline. Today, a family may wait until confusion becomes undeniable. Tomorrow, perhaps, the first warning could appear years earlier, not as a final sentence, but as a signal, a chance to look deeper, a chance to intervene, a chance to understand the brain before it breaks into visible symptoms. And if that future arrives, Alzheimer's may stop being a disease we only recognize by what is already lost. It may become a disease we recognize by what can still be protected. That would change everything. It would change how doctors diagnose. It would change how families prepare. It would change how research finds patients. It would change how treatments are tested. It would change how people think about aging, memory, and the brain itself. Because maybe the most important question is not whether we can remember everything forever. Maybe the question is whether medicine can learn to defend memory before the first pieces fall away. Before the missed names. Before the lost roads. Before the empty stare across the kitchen. Before the person who once held the family together begins slipping into a place no one else can reach. What if Alzheimer's does not have to begin with disappearance? What if it could begin with detection? A quiet warning, a second chance, a different path. And maybe one day, people will look back and wonder why we waited so long. Why we waited for memory to fail before we decided to listen to the brain. Because the future of Alzheimer's medicine may not begin with forgetting. It may begin with finding the danger early enough to protect what makes us who we are.